yourself, and then I'll let all the middle school teachers introduce themselves, and then we'll move on.
Hi there, I'm Mrs. Bennett, and I am one of the middle school language arts teachers this year.
And let's see, the next one I see on my screen is Miss Watts.
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized my mic was off. Okay, I'm Esther Watts. I teach history and ELA.
Thank you. And then Melinda.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Quilty, and I teach history.
Okay, and Taylor.
Hi, I'm Miss Bennett, and I teach math.
And one of our teachers who teaches science is currently preparing for her wedding tomorrow. So she is not a part of our presentation today, but she is just amazing as the rest of our team. And her name is Miss Jones right now. And whenever she comes back, she'll introduce her scholars to her new name. And then Xander, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mr. Jimenez, and I teach math and science to middle school.
Okay, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. So here at Leman Virtual Academy, and those of you that are here, I see some faces I recognize. You know our mission statement already, but for those of you that are new, our mission is to offer a rigorous classical education based on the traditions of Western culture, where all disciplines are interrelated, allowing scholars the ability to think independently and critically. We purpose to partner with supportive parents, pursue excellence, provide a safe and challenging environment, and instill morals and values in order to produce tomorrow's leaders today. And we definitely take that mission statement seriously. We take it apart every week and talk about something in that mission statement that we're focused on doing for our scholars. Our founder is Dr. Kevin Lehmann. For those of you who don't know who he is an internationally renowned psychologist, radio personality. He's been on television. He's an educator. He's a speaker. He's written over 70 books on parenting, marriage, and family living. And he is our founder, which is who we're named after. And here are some of the books that he's most popular for. The Birth Order book, Have a New Kid by Friday, Home Court Advantage, First Time Mom. And he's definitely in our schools a lot too. We actually have a Dr. Lehmann night coming up next week where he's going to be speaking with us. Our curriculum is based on the Trivium model, and we'll talk a little bit more about what the Trivium model is in a moment. It is challenging yet rigorous, and an example is math, which we're 1 year ahead in math, and you'll get to hear a little bit more about math in a moment. We use classical literature to teach, and we also, our curriculum's classical in nature, meaning all disciplines are interrelated, and it's framed upon that history timeline. So in 6th grade, their books are going to be based on what they're learning in history and so forth. And we also do have Socratic discovery based and authentic discussions based on what we're learning. So this explains a little bit more about the Trivium. There's 3 stages in learning in classical education. It starts with the grammar stage, and that's in those early years, sort of kindergarten through 3rd grade. And that's that time when our scholars are learning, they're memorizing math facts, and they're just learning how to gather knowledge. They do have a little bit of frustration trying to learn how to learning how to read, learning multiplication, memorizing. And then around 4th through 6th grade, we have that logic stage, and that's where they're really growing in their understanding, and they're starting to be able to think and reason and analyze. And they're also able to practice those skills that they learned in the earlier years. And then in 7th and 8th grades, when they're really starting to put everything together and they're starting to argue their opinions, they are showing off their skills, they're starting to lead and lecture with one another, and they really are able to tell you what they feel and why. What sets us apart here at Leman Academy is, of course, that safe at-home learning atmosphere, the classical education approach, the fact that we have in-person and online enrichment opportunities, so you have an opportunity to dive into both. This year, we did have to put a pause on in-person just because of the pandemic, but we're able to open those up again next year. We do have flexibility in our schedule within the week for scholars to work semi on their own pace. They still have to get things done within that week, but we have some scholars that have paced themselves to where they're able to get more done on one day so that they can do things the next day that they need to do personally, such as a swim meet or something like that. We do strive for relationships so that our scholars know who their teachers are and their teachers know who their scholars are. And we are going to be offering a success coach next year who's going to really help with them being able to manage their workload, being able to see what they need to do and when. And I think that's going to be a real asset to our program. We also do teach those virtues and values throughout our curriculum, such as caring, citizenship, perseverance, respect, responsibility, and trustworthiness. And we offer synchronous instruction, and these are a couple of our scholars that are participating in synchronous instruction. Synchronous means they're learning with their teacher during that time. And so the scholar does log in for 4 times a week in middle school as a whole group with their teacher for an hour. Each live meeting for the week will cover a different subject, and there are 4 core areas. And then the teachers are also providing small group instruction in the afternoons for more individualized instruction, as well as Scholar Hour. So you can see, again, the online instruction piece is that direct instruction, individual conferences when we need it, and then those core content areas. We also have asynchronous instruction, which means it's what they're doing on their own pace outside of the classroom time with the teacher. So the teacher assigns classwork in Schoology for the week, and then the scholars are able to pace themselves. The teachers do give a recommended schedule so that they're not trying to get everything done by on Friday. Instead, they pace themselves and do some things on Monday, some things on Tuesday, and so forth. And these are some examples of that asynchronous instruction you may see. For example, a Saxon math from the workbook. We do not do journeys into middle school, but they do have literature that they're reading. And they're not doing handwriting practice as much in the middle school either, but there are science projects and history projects that they're working on. Those copybook pages are more middle school does more of the timeline, and Ms. Colty will talk a little bit about that. And then viewing of videos or websites and just doing some of those things that they can do on their own without the teacher leading them. So in a brick and mortar setting, you could think of that's probably their seat work. That's what they're doing at their seats, but they're not doing their seat work with the teacher. That's something that in a classroom, your scholars may be sitting at their desk working independently to do. So now we're going to just meet our teachers. And so again, I'll just start with Stacy, let her talk a little bit about her classroom. And sorry, Miss Bennon. Miss Bennon. We have a Bennon and a Bennett, and the scholars get that mixed up sometimes too. And then we'll move through our teachers.
All right, so that sounds good. I'm going to share my screen here. So in our live lessons, this is actually what happens a lot in my class. At the beginning of every class, I'll share my screen and I'll have a presentation that I go through and work with the scholars. So my name is Mrs. Bennon, and I'm teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade English language arts. So in the middle school program, it has 4 main tiers. We've got Shirley Grammar that we work in. We analyze classical literature, poetry, and informational texts. And then in our writing class, we're going to be working on essays. We're going to be working on supporting our answers to questions with text evidence. We're going to work on developing more complex sentence structures and really nailing down our voice in our writing with active voice versus passive voice, and trying to make our sentence structures parallel. We also have monthly recitations, and these monthly recitations involve learning a piece of text from memory and then presenting it live in class to the classmates. This year, 6th grade read Adam of the Road, King Arthur, The Samurai's Tale, The Hobbit. 7th grade read Call of the Wild, The Witch of Blackbird Pond, My Brother Sam is Dead, and The Scarlet Pimpernel. And 8th grade read Red Badge of Courage, All Quiet on the Western Front, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Night. We're actually in the middle of Night right now. So the novels might change a little bit next year. However, you can kind of see the variety and range in which the scholars get. So I have a couple of just projects that I can share with you and show you. At the end of each novel, they do have a menu project in which they can choose what they want to do in order to present their knowledge of the book. And you can see a couple of those menu projects right here. I have a couple of scholar models that I can show you. So this was an end of novel project written by a 6th grader about King Arthur, and she presented a CD album. And you can see the songs that were chosen, the artwork that was chosen for the CD. Along with the songs are the reasons why she chose those songs, why they represent the novel. And this scholar actually went above and beyond and created the entire CD case, which is pretty cool. This is another end of novel project. And at first glance, it looks like it's not as developed maybe as the project that I just showed you. But really, when you start to look at it and think about it, it is. Because what this scholar did was went way more deeply into abstract thinking and used really kind of advanced symbolic representation to show knowledge of the text. We often utilize outside platforms and ways of showing knowledge. Here's an example where the scholar used Pixton comic platform in order to do a comic. Got a couple of examples of some poetry scholars have written this year for class. This was a fun project where they had to create a billboard to show both, actually all of the rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos. This one's my favorite because it made me laugh. We do some more creative poetry writing as well. This is called found poetry, also called blackout poetry, where they actually interact with the text. They do create some artwork with their poetry, and the results are really impressive. Some of our weekly assignments are pretty basic, where we're answering questions based off of knowledge of the text. We're analyzing text. We're really thinking critically. And then some of the assignments, like this one was not a project. It was just a daily assignment where you kind of interact with the world a little bit more. Things like going on nature hikes. And in this one, we attempted, and it was so hard. It was not easy. But we attempted to mimic the soap carving that a character did in our novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. And so this is one of the scholars' carvings of soap. All right, I will stop sharing my screen. And I don't know if you want to have questions now or let the other teachers present first.
I think it's fine if they want to, if they have something to ask now, and if not, they can might have a question later. So if anyone has a question, they're welcome to ask. Okay, Miss Colty, we'll move on to you.
Actually, I think Miss Bennett's going to go, but it looks like we do have a question. Miss McGregor, go ahead and unmute your mic and let us know.
So we can't hear you yet. At the bottom of the screen, there's a little microphone.
There it is. Okay, sorry. Okay, so my question is, my boys would be going into 7th and 8th, and they've each read some of the books that are on the list already. So what do you do in that situation? Like, I mean, do you just do those books again, or?
Yeah,
what?
we would have the scholars still do the books again, because I think you're going to find that some of the work that we do in class is going to be different from what they've done before. And it's highly possible that we're going to be taking a look at this novel through a new lens that they hadn't considered in the past.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. It's a tough act to follow. You know, I'm the math teacher. I don't have any really great projects or anything super exciting like that to show, although I'm very proud of my scholars' work when they show it beautifully. But I wanted to touch on what Ms. Caesar talked about, that we are an accelerated curriculum and what that actually means. So for example, our 8th graders are taking Algebra 1, which is traditionally a 9th grade class. So that's what that looks like a year ahead. Now, if you are coming from a school that is not with an accelerated curriculum, that doesn't mean that your scholar's not going to do well. It just means we might have to do a few things to catch up. And in the areas that we do that, that's the small groups, the scholar hours that we touched on before. So that accelerated curriculum is really important for parents to understand. It is a lot of work, but we are here to offer that additional support, live lessons, scholar hour, and the small groups. So Saxon is broken up into sections, and we cover about 10 to 11 sections a year, depending on scholar mastery. It usually takes about 3 weeks to get through a section, so you should prepare to do 3 to 4 lessons per week. I do change it up a little bit if it's a concept that's a little bit more complex that I want to take an extra day to work on. I might do 3 lessons that week versus 4. And so that's typically what it looks like in a week, is 3 to 4 lessons. I do different types of simulations with them, actual graphing and real life fun simulations on Thursdays and Fridays. Usually during our live lessons, we have outside sources, like Ms. Bennon said. We use Nearpod, which is a fun program where scholars are able to actually be a part of our presentation. So not just, you know, our PowerPoint up there, but it's a live interactive presentation that I can say, okay, let's graph this inequality. And I do write up here on my board, as you can see, I do use kind of that old school markers on the board, but it's really nice to do the live interaction. They can draw it on the map, and I can see them on their screen what they're writing, and I can say, hey, Johnny, you need to, you know, check your x-intercept, or, you know, I'm able to immediately give them feedback. So that's typically what our live lessons look like. I also do have a Mathletes after school activity, which is really fun. It's all grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, but our 8th graders have taken kind of that leadership role where they get to teach some of these concepts to 7th and 6th graders. And we do get a little competitive, but it is a fun after school activity that they get to do. So that's what I have for math. I was also going to share a little bit about science for our science teacher, but I can stop and answer any questions about math if anyone has anything.
I actually have a quick question.
Yes.
For the math. So it is once a week for the live instruction in math, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then for the remainder of the week, do you have pre-recorded, like I guess videos for the students so they can kind of figure out what they're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So I set my Schoology up, like they'll click on the week, and then everything is broken up into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday folders. So they would go on Monday and click on that folder, and I have notes already pre-made for them, and a PDF that they click on that has multiple different videos that they can watch. So I don't use just one type like Khan Academy. We outsource and get a couple of different videos for the same concept, so they have multiple different ways. You know, some kids don't like Khan Academy, whether it's just the guy's voice, you know, silly things like that. So I try to put different types of videos to help them. And then of course I have Scholar Hour every day, so they can come and get additional help if the notes and the videos aren't enough.
Okay. And the Scholar Hour, how does that look like for the different grades? Is it all under one time, or is it divided from between 6th, 7th, and 8th?
So this year we have done all grades at the same time. So mine are about an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And so I also use it as like a workspace too. So like I have a lot of scholars that will sit there and do their homework. So they'll have their live lessons, you know, most mornings, and then they come in the afternoon and they do their homework. So it's all different grades, and I just answer questions, you know, kind of like whoever gets in there first. I just start at the top and work my way down. And then once we get through all the questions, everybody continues working, and then they just ask questions as it goes.
Okay. And then for like the submissions, how does that look? Like, I know that they're doing, I know different teachers are like, cause I have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader. So that some teachers just do the weekly like quizzes and that's what they're doing for the submission. Some just have them turning in the work. What does it look like for you?
So they will be turning in their work. So I will have them do, so if you're familiar with Saxon then, so they'll do the practice set and the written practice on paper, and they will turn that in into that assignment. So like lesson 88, they will turn in the work that they completed for lesson 88 into that assignment Dropbox.
Okay. So you are doing like weekly quizzes too, I'm assuming, or?
Yeah, they look a little bit different. Sometimes I'll do them live in class, like on quizzes.com. Not sure if you're familiar with that. I'll do a quiz in Schoology just to make sure they're understanding the concept. Oh yeah, definitely the lesson practice is a must. Yes. Good. I'm happy you're excited about that. Yeah, so I do definitely some different types of quizzes just to kind of, change it up for them every once in a while.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Great questions. Anybody else?
I was wondering, do you do the entire lesson practice, or do you sometimes, like, how do you do that? I mean, sometimes my kids are doing Saxon at home right now, and sometimes it's a lot of review, or, how do you have them do the whole thing every time, or what do they do?
Another great question. Yes, so I actually will mix it up from odds and evens. 30 questions is quite a bit. And like you said, Saxon is very repetitive, which is an important part of the curriculum. We want to do that for retention purposes, but 30 problems 4 times a week is a little much. So I do break it up between odds and evens. So expect to be doing about 20 problems, 25 problems with that lesson practice in there as well. But for the written practice, it's 15 problems. So either odds or evens.
Okay, great. And then I have a son he's going into 7th grade, but he's already doing the 8-7. So would he ever be able to move up to, like, my boys do their math together, but I have an incoming 7th grader and an incoming 8th grader, but they work really well together. Could he ever move up with my other son and do, like, I mean, how would you go about that? You'd have to have some kind of test or something, or?
Well, I think we can definitely talk about it as far as, with the district and what they're looking for. That if we keep him in 7th grade, we could have them join like my small groups together. So like, for example, right now on Fridays, I have 2 sets of siblings, and one's 8th grade, one's 6th grade. And I just happen to have one small group for these siblings where they just love to work together. And so that's one area that we do leave open for those small groups so that we can kind of tailor them to what our scholars need. So if we weren't able to move him into 8th grade, we could do a small group where they have that opportunity to still work together.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then like, you turn in the work set, but do you have like any kind of is some of it graded like automatically where they know right away that their problem is correct or incorrect, or
Yes, another excellent question. So I've used 2-3 different methods with this process. This is one that I'm always kind of working on to give that instant feedback. Right now, what I feel like has been working really well is I will actually it'll look like an assessment in Schoology where they will put in all of their answers and it will grade them automatically. And I give them 3 times to submit it. So what they'll usually do is they'll do their first submission and then they'll see which ones they got wrong. They can come to Scholar Hour and help me, or they can, just try again on their own. So that's one route that I go. Another option is there's another program that I just started using. It's called My Math Assistant, and it is just built for Saxon. And so they can then input all of their answers into that program, and so they will know right away if they got it right or wrong. I do have assignments that I manually grade. So, for example, this week my 8th graders had to graph asymptotes, and so they'll turn in one assignment that is just one problem that they have to graph, and then I sit and will give them all the feedback they need on that one specific assignment. And so I kind of change it up. You know, Saxon has great multi-step problems, so I'll put 2 in there that'll look like an individual assignment, and I'll grade them on the multi-step problem. So a couple of different ways, but yes, they will always receive instant feedback from me.
Great. Yeah. And yet they're still getting the part where they have to show their work, which is also so important. So.
Yes, which they always love to fight me on. But yes, we are going to show our work in math. We will not give up on this. So yes, excellent questions. Thank you so much. Anything else?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Oh, good. This has been a great discussion. Thank you. So I just want to talk about science very briefly. As Miss Caesar said, Miss Jones, she's getting ready for her wedding, so she wasn't able to be here, but she wanted to share just a couple of things about science. One of her favorite things that she loves to do is every quarter they focus on a science project. So everything that she teaches kind of leads up to this project. An example of that for 8th grade is they do projects on light and sound waves, kinetic theory. 7th grade focuses on the periodic table, chemistry of life. And 6th grade is on solar system, astronomers, and volcanoes. And one of her big highlights this year has been that they took a virtual tour of a volcano. So she does have some really fun virtual field trips that she does like to do with her scholars. I can try to answer questions about science. Some of the other teachers might be able to jump in and help me out with this. So if anyone does have any questions, please let us know.
All right, it doesn't look like we have any questions on science, so I'll go ahead and move to history. I've been with the Virtual Academy since the beginning, so I've got to see us grow, and it's amazing, and get some amazing coworkers and more scholars. Our curriculum's the same as it is at the brick and mortar, so we match what's going on there. So we focus on the copybook pages and the timelines. So I'm going to present my screen because I kind of like to brag because we have some pretty amazing scholars, some of the work, and let you guys see it. For the 6th graders, give it a second to share. They're going to do from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance. And then the 7th graders are going to pick off where we left off with the 6th graders and do the end of the Renaissance all the way to the Gold Rush. And then the 8th graders do from Civil War to current. And what happens is they're learning about U.S. history and world history all at the same time. So it's not just focused on one aspect of it all. We spend a lot of time with the timeline because our curriculum is history driven. So what they're studying in history will impact what they're reading in the other classes, like in language arts. For example, this is one of my 8th graders' timelines. And so they're working on this at this time, the civil rights movement, and they're reading books like To Kill a Mockingbird in the language arts class. So they're connected to each other. Here's an example of the map. We're always working on geography when we're working with history. So this is one of the 7th graders with the Louisiana Purchase there. This was from a portfolio. So at the end of every unit, the scholars create a portfolio where they draw a graphic and write paragraphs to tell what they learned about it. And at the end, all these portfolios equal their history book that they've created on their own between the maps and the timelines and the portfolios. So this is an 8th grader with John F. Kennedy. This is a 7th grader here, or a 6th grader, excuse me, and we're studying the first industrial revolution. So their graphic doesn't have to be that amazing John F. Kennedy because I wouldn't torture all of them. That's a beautiful artist. It can be something simple to their mind that represents it all. And the writing part shows us what occurred, when did it occur, and why is it important? Why do we study this in history? What impact did it have overall? We do some fun projects every once in a while. So this is the one where they created ugly sweaters at Christmas time over somebody that stood out to them. They had a lot of fun this year with this one. Here is the different acts leading up to the American Revolution where they created a graph to show and explain it all. This is one of our in-class live lessons that we're talking about where they did a hashtag to explain like between the plague and Joan of Arc, and they're interacting with each other and reading it. Some of them added pictures to it. You know, this one, don't have a kid be king at 8 years old. So you knew that's what stood out. Like the kid was king when he was 8. And we talk about how would you want to be in charge at 8 years old? And they're all like, no way, not going to happen. So it's kind of interesting to see their thought process of it all. So I will open it up for any questions. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And before I moved on, I just wanted to ask if Mr. Jimenez, do you have anything to add before we move on? I know that they covered pretty much what you teach. But
Yeah, I mean, I think Taylor did a really great job covering everything that we do in math and all the ways we make ourselves available to the scholars, and how we try to go above and beyond to give them the help that they need. And as for science, yeah, I think the projects that the scholars get to put together, and they get to have a really hands-on approach, even though it is a virtual setting, which I think is a tough balance to strike. But the teachers here, they're all experts. It's been my first year here at the Virtual Academy, and all the other teachers have been really helpful, showing me how to make it work and how to make such a what you think is a difficult way of learning actually effective. So yeah, they're all really amazing.
So I'm going to continue on and share the rest of our presentation for those of you that are with us.
Miss Susan, can I talk about our clubs for a second? Miss Bennett mentioned math club, but I kind of forgot about some of our other clubs. Or is that later in the presentation?
If you want to talk about that now, that would be fine.
Okay, awesome. So we try to give them as much as they want out of it. And this year, the scholars were super motivated. So they're working on a yearbook. We have our deadline of May 1st. We're trying to still get some pictures of all the scholars. Some of them wanted to write a newspaper, which I never partaked in that. And so they meet bi-weekly, and they've come up with a great student and scholar edition newspaper once a month. We have kids that love Legos, so we have a Lego club going on, and we have a book club going on along with student council. So there's a lot of chances for them to participate after the school hours or within the school hours on extracurricular activities.
So thank you for mentioning that, and we always are open for trying to new clubs, and we're looking forward to that next year in person and online. I think our teachers went over the typical kind of school week, but just to review that, they are assigned work on a week-to-week basis. So this is not a self-paced program per se. They get their work for the week and they complete it for the week so that the teacher is able to focus on whatever she's teaching that week during her live lesson. So there is a little bit of flexibility, but it's only within that week. The scholars are required to log in with middle school 4 times a week with their teachers, and that's very important for that live interactive piece with their teachers and with their classmates so they feel connected. Also, scholars will need to work the expected number of hours per week to meet the state requirements on assignments provided by the teachers, and those minutes, as we call them, are uploaded, and that's how we take attendance in the virtual world, is you are self-reporting the minutes that your scholar works each day on assignments. So here's a sample weekly schedule, your live lessons for 6th through 8th grade. It's 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And then you would have homework. The scholars would work for about an hour in addition to their live lesson each day in Schoology, maybe a little more some days, a little less some days. And then we also do provide art and music that's optional that the scholars are able to participate in. We do believe that partnering with parents is ultimate in order for our scholars to be successful in this program. The parents do have that ultimate responsibility for the education of your children, and we are just serving as an extension, partnering with the home in order to serve the families and provide the curriculum. The parents' support is essential in making sure that they're logging in, that they're turning in work. So you will be getting a lot of communication from the teachers, primarily through email because we are a virtual school, and you may get phone calls, etc., whenever we see that a scholar is not completing work or if it looks like they may need some additional support. So as the parent, we ask that you help your scholar with scheduling. You think in middle school they have it figured out, but we found that sometimes they're not as mindful of their schedule as maybe some of the younger scholars are, and just helping them to be able to plan and pace out their assignments for the week. And they may still need assistance in uploading assignments into Schoology. Most of our middle schoolers have it figured out and they do a good job with that, but they may need assistance here and there. Scholars should also be able to be self-sufficient, though they may need your oversight to just be sure they're completing their assignments in a timely manner. And in the middle school setting, that's one of the things that we find is sort of a hindrance for our scholars, is they can make themselves look really busy. You look over there and they look like they're working their hearts out, but you don't know what they're doing unless you go over and see that they're watching cat videos all day. So it's just making sure that they're actually doing what they're telling you they're doing and giving them that oversight so that they're actually learning what we're trying to teach. That we do provide digital and print resources, and Mr. Hesbridge is the one that manages that aspect. He's here with us also. And we also use Schoology, which is our platform, and some of the teachers spoke about that earlier. Schoology is a platform where the teachers are able to assign videos, live interactive lessons through quizzes and some of those other things that they have, give websites for them to look at. The scholars are able to type answers, have discussions, have in a Socratic nature, if you will, and they're able to see announcements from their teachers of assignments that are due. Sometimes the teachers could post a video of something exciting in there. So there's lots of ways that we utilize Schoology. And then Mr. Hesbridge, if there's some kind of an issue with a tech, you'll hear from him. He's also able to post whenever we're doing map testing, so that you'll see announcements in there from him. I'm also able to post announcements. So it's sort of a homeroom kind of place where everybody talks to one another, but then it's also a hub for their assignments, and that's how they upload their assignments. This is what a course may look like. So this is a discussion post where they're able to post back and forth to each other and with the teacher. And then you can see that in a week there's 5 assignments. We did talk a little bit about how there is flexibility within the week. So let's say Monday, your scholar decides, well, you know, I didn't spend a lot of work today on my ELA. I think I can do the next lesson too. Well, they're able to do that. They already know what tomorrow's lesson is, so they can get that completed if they have time. What we don't recommend is trying to jump around and do lesson 1, then do lesson 5, and then maybe I'll go back and do lesson 3, because then they're confused. But they are able to complete it. As long as it's done within that week, it's fine if they want to go ahead a little bit. And that's been great for some of our scholars, because there's some that really want to work ahead, because then they're like, I'm done for the week. I've got everything done. And they are able to have some free time on Friday, for example. All of our scholars do get an email account, and that is how they log into their live lesson with their teachers. We use Google Meet, which is what you're using today. We have found that it's a very secure system. You've seen probably some of the other ways schools have used to log in with their live teachers, and some of the things that didn't go well for that. We're very fortunate that with this, it's very secure. They can't log in without their Gmail account, so we know who's in our classrooms and are able to monitor that. This gives a little bit more information about our art and music program. There are going to be some assignments that have art and music, as you saw through some of the examples, to just naturally be a part of the assignment, because we do believe all of the curriculum's interrelated and that they should be able to express themselves through art in ELA. But we do also have an art teacher who teaches as well, and she focuses her lessons on the timeline of in history, just as our teachers do. So here's some examples of some enrichment and after-school activities that we provide. As we talked about earlier, we do have virtual clubs, and we're hoping to bring back some of these in-person clubs next year. Art, science. We do have a student council that meets. We have the Lego club. We have several scholars in different book clubs. We have a cooking club. And then if there are after-school sports or clubs at campuses nearest you, for example, if you live in Marana or Oro Valley and you hear there's a chess club at Marana, your scholar can participate in any clubs on campus as long as it's after school hours. And the same thing goes for sports. So if you have a scholar that would like to play baseball, they're able to go to their nearest campus and they're able to try out and participate in those sports. sometimes we get questions about, oh, yes, I'll stop her. Yeah, you can answer. Kelly?
My question was, is the sports, do they do that at the Mesa campus as well? Or like, it looks like maybe some of those things weren't offered at the Mesa campus.
I'm actually not sure about the sports at Mesa. I do know there is a soccer club, but I'm not sure it's part of the campus.
And I noticed too that it looks like some of those were for at Mesa, maybe particularly, were only through 6th grade for those ones, but I don't know. Or 5th grade, I don't know what it was.
I can answer that if you want, Beth.
Please, you know more about Mesa than I do.
Hi, Kelly. So
Hi.
the Mesa campus did have an enrichment program, and it was through 6th grade scholars, like kinder through 6th grade. But because of COVID this year, we weren't able to hold it up at the Mesa campus because these were scholars who weren't necessarily ours. So they were homeschooling or things like that, and they would come in for enrichment. It was art, science, and PE. But the Mesa campus will be doing just like all the other campuses this next school year. They'll be doing clubs after school. I think they had a nature club, they had a hiking club, they had after school sports. All of those things are going to be starting up again this next school year, and your scholars can do any of that. But it seems pretty sparse this year just because of COVID. There wasn't a whole lot on the calendar, but you can do any of it. And we do try and put a lot of that information in newsletters. So make sure you're reading the newsletters, because we'll put in there, you know, sports or this activity is happening for this campus. So just make sure you're reading that so you can catch whatever's happening.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for jumping in there. So one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, does Leman Virtual Academy support IEPs or 504 plans? And the answer to that is that we are a publicly funded charter school. So we follow all the rules and regulations of any other public school. So we do honor all 504s and IEPs. In our setting, they may look a little different. For example, a scholar might have in their 504 that they're able to go to the nurse's office 3 times a day to get their sugar tested if they have diabetes. We don't need to do that in our setting, but we do have some other things that we put in, because in a virtual setting, there's needs that need to be met that might not need to be met in a brick and mortar setting. So we adjust the IEP or 504 to meet the setting. And then of course, if they transfer back to a brick and mortar campus, then that school will readjust the IEP or 504 for that setting. So to get started, you need the minimum a Chromebook or a tablet for your scholar. We've had some that's tried to do school on a phone, and that doesn't work very well. Tablet does work for most of the activities that our scholars do. There are a few platforms such as map testing it doesn't work very well with. So a Chromebook's probably a very cost-effective way to get the material that you need if you would like to get something for your scholar that would be efficient for all of the things that they need to do. We also ask that you have a web camera, and typically a laptop or a Chromebook or a tablet already has that camera built in as well as a microphone. And that's just so that we can see your scholar as well as they can see us. So we know so our teachers know who they're communicating with, and they can build that relationship. And the microphone, so they can ask their teacher questions and feel like they're actually part of the classroom. And then also a scanner or a smartphone with a scanning app, because in Schoology, they're able to download an app and take a picture of an assignment and upload it. It makes it very easy to submit assignments. And of course, a printer, because here and there may be assignments that the teachers are going to ask you to print out and write on and then submit through that picture feature that I was mentioning earlier. We do have a supply list on our website, and it's listed by grade. It may change a little bit between now and the summer, but we will definitely have it updated by summer so you know what you'll need to get in order to be successful. And your scholar has all the materials they need for the first day of school. We do have the reading list posted too, and as Ms. Bennon said earlier, it may change a little bit because they were looking at updating the reading list, but it's going to stay about the same. There's not going to be too many changes. And the last piece is how to enroll. So I'm going to click on here where it says, so this is our website, just lemanacademy.org. and then you're going to go down to Arizona Schools. Oh, sorry. Under enrollment. You just have to go to Arizona Schools. And then right here where it says enrollment for 2021, 2022, this tells you what you need to know for enrollment. And then this green button will take you where you would create your parent view account, which is going to be very important, especially in the virtual setting, because that is where you will find your scholars' grades, as well as that is going to be how you are going to report your minutes for your scholar or your attendance each day, how much time you're spending completing school each day. So whatever password or email you use, you'll want to make sure you remember that. We've had some people that have used emails that they never look at again to register, and they don't realize that that's actually what we use to try to communicate with them after that. So I'm going to stop presenting now and just see if we have any other questions or if the teachers have anything else that they want to add.
I do have one more question.
Yes, ma'am. I see your hand.
I'm just curious about Latin. Like I know at your brick and mortar that you teach Latin. Is that something that in the future the virtual world is going to continue to do, or you don't foresee that happening?
We actually do have that position posted right now. So we're hoping that we're able to bring that on. We are just waiting to see if we have some candidates that are qualified to teach it, because we don't want to offer it unless we have someone qualified for that. But we're definitely looking at adding that. I'm just not sure if that's going to happen this year or not.
Okay, and that would be for middle school. I mean, would they do
Yes.
Spanish for the elementary? You think that that's probably not going to happen?
So we don't have a Spanish teacher for the elementary, but we do have a self-paced Spanish program. Well, it's actually any language program, and we have some scholars that are learning all kinds of languages. We use Duolingo, and that's something that they're able to go into. And we have some that are learning Spanish. There's one trying to learn Japanese, but it's not for a grade.
Okay.
Any other questions or anything else the teachers want to add?
For your safety for the chats, they're not allowed to send chats to each other. We've disabled that feature. And if someone does send an email, you can always add a teacher and forward it. And they're not allowed to be in Hangouts without a teacher or admin present. That's how we keep the safety. And that's why they have to log in with their Leman Gmail accounts to go to the class Hangouts or Scholar Hours or small groups, because it'll only let in our scholars.
And the teachers know, and we've spoken about this, and they follow this. And I know because we get phone calls sometimes because people don't understand why they're not able to get into their Google Meet. If you try to get in with any other Gmail account or any other email account to the Google Meet, it gets declined. The teachers decline it because they don't know who that is, and we don't want to chance somebody coming into a Google Meet that doesn't belong there. And so what will happen typically is they'll email the teacher and they'll say, I'm trying to get in and I can't get in. Why can't I get in? Or they'll call the office. And then we try to troubleshoot when every single time it's been they're trying to get in with a personal email.
That I'd like to piggyback on that. Your Google account also works for any accounts that you're doing in Schoology when you want to access documents on the Google Drive. If you're trying to access anything on the Google Drive, if you're not logged into your Leman account, it will not allow you to access it. So it is really important to remember your Gmail and use it to get into everything.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sorry, so you're saying that like basically everything that they access, if they do it within, like, let's say they're working on a history project or something, they can do it all within that Google thing. So they're never really, I mean, unless they open a different browser or something, they're supposed to be doing all their work within there.
So yes, and we get notifications. So let's say that your scholar is in his room doing his assignment and he starts looking at websites he shouldn't be, and he's logged into his Gmail account. I get a notification and then I communicate that with you.
Okay.
So So we actually, as long as they're logged into their Leman Gmail account, I know if they're going on a site that's not appropriate or if they do a search that's not appropriate, and we alert the parents right away.
Good.
And-
Also with that, sorry, I'm still formulating the question. Forgot what it was.
That's
And with
okay.
that, Miss Caesar
Oh.
has us use a to show videos that she's provided a link with us that takes away the ads or being able to click on the next one. Our videos are embedded within, so they can't
Okay.
get lost in the cat video because I showed a history video. It's a safe link, so it only shows that video.
Okay, great. And then as far as like, you said recording the time that they're doing school, is that by, do they have to be in their Google Meet basically like that? Or I would be like, no, they were working on their reading during this time and it really did take this long. Or, so
So
as the day goes on, I'm keeping track of that.
So that's a good question, and it is kind of an honor system with the parents. So you would include the 1 hour there with Miss Quilty or whoever is teaching that day, along with all the other assignments they did for the whole day, and that can also include scouts or another after-school club. It's any learning opportunity for the day. We have a lot of families that do religious studies, so they include that in their minutes for the day. So it's any learning opportunity that your scholar has throughout the day counts as the required number of minutes for that day.
Oh, okay, cool.
Including nature walks, which we do incorporate learning through our nature walks.
Great.
And we're
thanks.
also able to see how long they are logged in. So if they came and they're like, "Oh no, mom, I was in her class, or I was on that assignment for an hour and a half," the computer program tells us like they never opened the assignment or they were truly in it for 90 minutes. So if you ever have a question on what they were working on, we're able to see that on our side.
Yeah, and we've actually had some scholars that didn't realize that, and we're like, "Oh, actually, they haven't logged in all week." So we are able to give you that information if you ever need it.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
welcome.
And how many students are there in the virtual, like for possibly this next year for 7th and 8th grade? Like,
Well, I'll let them talk a little bit about that, but we had to come up with a different system this year because we got inundated, obviously, because of COVID. But we still tried to keep the live class time down to about 15 to 20. That doesn't mean they only had 15 to 20 scholars that they were responsible for the whole day, because what they did is sort of the periods like middle school does in person, where they had a first hour, a second hour, and a third hour. And so even though the class size itself was small, they were responsible for quite a few scholars, but it seemed to work pretty well. Do you ladies or gentlemen have anything to say with that?
Yeah, I think we kind of hovered between 150 to 160 scholars in all of middle school this year. Now, each individual scholar, like Ms. Caesar said, would have maybe 15 to 25 classmates that they actually see, whereas we see all of them.
yeah, that's a lot. Oh, one other question was just like participation. You know, I have a son that would just love to sit in front of the computer and never say anything. And that's always a concern. How would you, like, he would probably get graded on being part of the conversation, or, I mean, I'm thinking like history and language arts, especially. You know, I want him to be able to express his thoughts. That's just a big part of education. So how do you handle that?
So I'll let you go, Ms. Quilty, in just a minute. We're pretty responsive to individual scholars' needs. So, for example, we have some scholars who don't speak up, and you know what? That's what's best for them, right? So they're learning, they're present, their face is here, they're engaged, they might be emailing us, and we've talked with the families, and for whatever circumstances is going on in their life, that's what's best for them. We have scholars who, you know, are quiet, but parents want them more active, and maybe it'd be better for them to be more engaged. And so we'll make sure that we're calling on them and we're asking for their perspective. And maybe we're asking for it in chat, or they're raising their hand, or we're just going to cold call them. It really depends on individual scholar needs.
We require all of them to have their camera on so we can see that they're there, you know, and we can see that they're actively paying attention to us. And then we do kind of work, we get to know our scholars pretty well. We've had scholars that were super quiet at the beginning that are not so quiet now. Like they have come into their own in amazement. But at first, if we would have asked them to talk that first week, they probably would have fainted. So we get to, it starts off as a weird, because looking at yourself right now, all of you that have your camera on, it's a little weird to be on here looking at yourself, right, as you're having class, and it's awkward for them at first, but they start to own it. So we do require, the biggest thing is we want to be able to see you. We'll work on that communication skills. And your son, though you think he's quiet at the beginning, that might not be the person you see come May.
That's great. That's good.
And I was going to
Thank
also
you.
mention some of the things that I've seen them do. Is, like they said, they're very responsive to needs. So they may hold him back when everyone's logging out and say, I know that you have something to say about this topic. Before you log out, can you tell me what you thought about today's lesson? And so I've seen some individual one-on-ones to try to get them to come out of their shell at first until they're ready to talk in front of the whole group.
Great. Thanks. That's helpful. I don't have any more questions. I've had so many. Thank you.
I'm glad you're asking questions. Does anyone else have anything to add? Well, with that, thank you so much for coming. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us here at the office or email me. We would love to answer your questions, and I appreciate you considering Leman Virtual Academy for your scholars' education. Have a great day.